Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to the floor of my living room. Today I thought I would do a video about my top 5 European cities that I would recommend you visit. I know a lot of us, especially me, are starting to get that travel itch right now, so I thought maybe this would provide some inspiration for planning your first post-corona adventure. If you like this video or like me, please make sure to subscribe. It really helps my channel and means a lot to me. My first city that I'm going to talk about, anybody that knows me will know that this is one of my favorite European cities. I recommend it to anyone that's traveling there, is Prague. Prague's Old Town looks like it's straight out of a fairy tale. It's just so beautiful. So if you do go there, I would definitely recommend getting a hotel as close to the heart of Old Town as possible. I found one that I really love on my most recent trip to Prague, so I will link that hotel below. I've been there for Thanksgiving, I've been there for Christmas, I've been there for New Year's. I think my favorite time of year to go there is definitely the springtime, but during Christmas and New Year's, their Christmas market in Old Town runs all the way from like right after American Thanksgiving all the way until January 1st. So that's really fun, really gorgeous with all of the lights and just lit up. I also think it's really fun to go for New Year's because you can get drunk any night you want, but Prague is relatively well known for their absinthe culture, I guess. Would you call that absinthe culture? I don't know. But their absinthe scene. They have a lot of absinthe bars, and my friend and I had a blast at one the last time we went. What's nice is if you get a hotel right in the Old Town, you can get drunk and you can party in the Old Town where all of the like fireworks and stuff like that are happening on New Year's, and then just waddle back to your hotel. When it comes to more touristy sightseeing things you should do, my number one thing is just to spend some time on Charles Bridge. Honestly, Charles Bridge offers beautiful views of both sides of the river because Prague does have a river that runs through it. So Old Town is on one side of the bridge, and then there's a whole different part of the town, and the Prague Castle is over on that side as well. But the bridge itself, I just think is so fun, so gorgeous. There's tons of street vendors, artists, really talented musicians that post up there on the river, and honestly, you can like pass a whole afternoon there. One of the things that Prague is really well known for is the clock in the Old Town. It's this astronomical clock that's really famous. The story that goes along with it is that when that clockmaker finished that clock, the king actually had the clockmaker's eyes gouged out because he didn't want the clockmaker to be able to make that for anybody else. So don't be that talented, I guess. Don't be that good at what you do. Another thing that I would say about Prague that honestly goes for a lot of European cities, but there's just so many small corners of the city to discover if you just walk around. Just let the day take you where it will. If you go over the Charles Bridge, there's like sets of stairs that go off the Charles Bridge on either side, and you kind of go down onto those streets. I feel like those are less trafficked streets. You know, a lot of cool like cafes and restaurants, bookstores, stuff like that. Just really unique. When you do walk across the Charles Bridge, definitely take the time to walk up to the Prague Castle. It's a little bit of a hike. The Prague Castle is actually an UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it just combines a bunch of different types of architecture. There's a lot of good food in Prague. There's nothing that really stands out to me as unique to Prague except for this sweet street vendor sort of dish called turtleneck. It's basically like a sweet bread, I guess. They coat it in cinnamon and sugar, sometimes with nuts. They started putting soft serve ice cream in it, Nutella in it, like crazy stuff. So I definitely think you should grab yourself one of those if you're there. The next city on my list, this has been like my number one city for so long, is London. I don't know if London is like a cliche, like everybody loves London, or I've heard a lot of people don't like London because like there can be smog issues and stuff like that, but I just love London, and if the right opportunity presented itself, I would move there in a heartbeat. I've gone there about 6 times, at least 6 big times with my mom while she's on work for periods of about 2 weeks. So like pretty long trips. And she would go off to work and I would just spend the entire day wandering the city. I had it made. The first thing that I would recommend is honestly go to a play. When I'm there, I go to a play every single night. What you can do is you go to Leicester Square. I'll put it at the bottom because it's not spelled like Leicester, but Leicester Square the morning of, or like maybe the day before that you want to see a play, and they'll have a ton of cheap tickets for you. All of my seats through this, like these ticket booths in Leicester Square, have been really good seats. So just because they're discounted does not mean they're bad whatsoever. The next thing that I love that I always make sure to go whenever I'm there, and I recommend to anyone that's going there, is Borough Market. It's a food market made up of tons of local vendors. There's stuff ready to eat there, and there's also stuff that you can like take home and eat later. It's right near the Tower Bridge train stop, so you just get off at Tower Bridge and it's right there. And some museums that I would recommend. Honestly, I have been to the majority of the museums in London. There's so much history in London, but my top two are the Churchill War Rooms. Churchill is basically my favorite historical figure. I love him. Churchill War Rooms are super easy to get to. They're right near Downing Street, where like all of the parliamentary buildings and government buildings are. If you have extra time, I also love Bletchley Park. The only bad thing about Bletchley Park is it is like, I think it's an hour train ride outside of the city. It's not super convenient to get to. Bletchley Park, I was just totally nerding out the entire day. If you don't know anything about Bletchley Park, basically that's where the whole cracking of the German codes was taking place, cracking the Enigma, stuff like that. Even though it might seem a little bit cliche, I think high tea at Harrods is a must. And then while you're there, Harrods is like this like rich shopping mall kind of. They have so many different sections of type of shop within Harrods. I obviously love the food halls in Harrods. They're so good. Those are some of my favorite things to do that I pretty much do every time I go to London, but just like set out walking around the city and see where it takes you, especially walking along the river on the opposite side from Big Ben. There's tons of restaurants there, street vendors, musicians, artists. Ooh, there's like this outdoor bookstore that I always love to go to. So definitely walk along the Thames. So that's enough on London because I just talked for like 15 minutes about one city. Another city that I've honestly actually only been here once, but I really enjoyed my time there, was Oslo. Norway is much more known for its nature, mountains, fjords, stuff like that, but I really enjoyed my time in the city. The people are super, super nice. There's tons of history there, so they have a lot of polar exploration and like Viking history. So I went to 4 different museums while I was there. Honestly, I would highly recommend any of the ones I went to. Let me just real briefly tell you which ones that I specifically went to. The Viking Ship Museum, which houses 3 different Viking burial ships that were found in an archaeological dig. And in addition to the ships, they have some of the other artifacts that were found as well. And then there was the Fram Museum, which talks about 3 different polar explorers, but one of the main exhibits is obviously the Fram, which was the first ship to sail through the Northwest Passage. One thing that I wanted to mention about the Fram Museum that's really cool is it has a lot of like interactive exhibits. It's supposed to be like, could you have been a polar explorer, and like carrying around their bags and stuff like that.
So we think Kelsey cheated.
That was really fun. And then there's the Kon-Tiki Museum, which talks about Thor Heyerdahl, one of Norway's most famous explorers. He sailed the entire Pacific Ocean on a literal raft. So there are 3 different rafts in this museum. There is the Kon-Tiki, and then there's Ra 1 and Ra 2, because he did it multiple times, because I guess why not? So that's super cool. It is honestly mind-blowing, the like contraption that he sailed across the Pacific Ocean in. On a slightly different note is the Norway Resistance Museum. It's about the Nazi occupation of Norway and how the population reacted to that. There's this floating sauna that you can go to. It's right near the Opera House, which is cool because the Opera House is beautiful. So you kind of get this view while you're in the floating sauna. You are in the sauna and then you jump into the fjord that it is floating in. So that's super cool. One thing that's awesome, it's completely free, you can just walk through it anytime you have time, is the Vigeland installation. I might be butchering that name because it's Norwegian, but it's within Frogner Park. So it's an outdoor exhibit of 212 statues made by this artist Vigeland in like the 1920s through 1940s. These statues are just insane in multiple ways. One, they're humongous, but two, very abnormal subject matter in these statues. So definitely think you should go there if you're in Oslo. One of the things that I finally got to check off my bucket list while I was in Oslo, within a 2-hour drive from Oslo, we found a place to go dodge sledding, which was something that I've been wanting to do forever. It was just absolutely beautiful. We were there all day and we got to see like the sunset out there, which was just, it was just so gorgeous. Then after you're done dodge sledding, you go into a cabin and you like sit around a fire and it's really cozy and you literally de-thaw and check that all of your appendages are still on you. Hopping around the map a little bit, my next city that I'm going to talk about is Istanbul. It's just always stood out to me as a really magical city, really different from a lot of the other cities in Europe for kind of obvious reasons. It has a different culture. It's much closer to Asia and the Middle East. We stayed at like this boutique hotel where they gave us a buffet breakfast on the rooftop. It was super gorgeous. Diving into some of the things that I would recommend you do while you're there, definitely the Grand Bazaar. It's one of the oldest and largest covered markets in the world. And we had so much fun just walking through there. For some reason, we all bought like hookahs at this bazaar because they're just super beautiful, like really jeweled and ornate. And one thing that I really appreciated about it is sometimes shop owners in those markets can be a little bit aggressive or just like haggling you, but we did not get that vibe whatsoever. Everybody was super friendly. Another thing on the note of shopping that I don't think you should miss if you go to Istanbul is rug shopping. Honestly, bring a suitcase with room for a rug too, because I think the experience of being in those shops and the way they try to sell you the rugs is just really fun to experience. But honestly, you'll probably leave with a rug because they are good quality and they're gorgeous. I'll pop some photos of the ones that we ended up buying up here. So just leave some room in your suitcase. But the experience is really cool because rug shops often have like benches along the walls of them and they'll sit you down, they'll bring you like tons of tea, they'll bring you biscuits and cookies and baklava, and it's just so much fun. And they'll just keep bringing out rugs and like talking about the rugs, and there's oftentimes someone sitting there like currently weaving a rug so that you can see that process in front of you. I haven't seen that anywhere else other than Turkey, at least nowhere else in Europe. So I think it's really special. That is probably my number one thing, that if you're going to go to Istanbul, do not miss that. Then obviously I will list the mosques. Like, you have to go see the mosques because you're in Istanbul and because it's gorgeous. I really enjoyed just hearing the call to prayer every day. It was really beautiful and really cool how it plays so loudly throughout the entire city. Just crazy. Fun fact is that Istanbul is the only city in the world, I'm pretty sure, that is on 2 continents. It's actually partly in Europe and partly in Asia, and there's a bridge that connects the two. The bridge goes over the Bosphorus Strait, which separates the two. We took a boat tour of the Bosphorus Strait. They provided us lunch and dinner. We watched the sunset from the boat. We swam in, I can't remember if it was the Bosphorus Strait itself or like if we left the strait and swam in the Black Sea, but it was just really so much fun. So that's all for Istanbul, at least until I get to post an updated vlog, hopefully sometime soon when I go there. Last but definitely not least, because these were honestly in no particular order, I would probably put London first. But other than that, like I could never choose. Barcelona was one of the first cities, if not the very first city, that my mom and I traveled to when we moved to Germany in 2007. I think it says a lot about this city that as we traveled to a bunch of places after that, Barcelona stayed in like our top 5 places or top 5 cities. One of the things Barcelona is really famous for is its architecture, and specifically Antoni Gaudi. He designed a ton of the different buildings, especially the famous buildings in Barcelona. Sagrada Familia is also on my must-see list when you're in Barcelona, and it was also architected by Antoni Gaudi. It is stunning. It is super stunning. But one funny thing about it is that they broke ground on Sagrada Familia in 1891. and it's not finished yet. It's still being built. It's just like a running joke in my family, like we freaking landed people on the moon in like 10 years after we decided we were going to do it, but this freaking building is still being built like 140 years later. But despite that, it is honestly really gorgeous. One last thing on Anthony Gaudi is another thing I think you should do when you're in Barcelona is Park Güell. Park Güell is like multiple parks and gardens all joined together, and also features a lot of Gaudi's architecture. So it's super unique. It's a super cool just place to spend the day. They have a lot of vendors and artists and people selling like jewelry and stuff there. So that's really nice too. Another place that you should go when you're in Barcelona is just walk down Las Ramblas. Las Ramblas has a ton of artists sitting there, different street vendors. But on Las Ramblas is Mercado de la Boqueria, which is the largest market in Barcelona. There's a lot of like new foods you can try there, a lot of local foods, wine, fruit, stuff like that. Barcelona actually has a lot of beaches too, and I've stayed like on hotels right on the beach. It's super beautiful. So that's a really cool thing about Barcelona, where you're getting like, it does not feel like a beach town whatsoever. It feels like a full-blown big city, but it is a beach town at the same time. So that's really awesome if you kind of want to combine that into a vacation. I have like a good hour of clips to edit at this point, so I'm gonna wrap this up. Hopefully this video isn't too long. I hope this inspired you to plan some travel for the rest of 2020, I guess maybe 2021. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. It really helps support my channel. And leave me a comment if you have anything else to add. If you've been to any of these cities and know of like a can't miss experience, definitely let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.